Oh God, I just look awful. See, I upped my production value on my videos maybe a year and a half ago, and everybody thought it was because I was like taking things more seriously. No, it's just because I look worse. So I need better production to like maintain the same level. So I'm out here in the woods, the Bothy Woods, for those of you who will remember that. And we've been sick this week, which is why I'm so ashy and pale and fat. Getting a cold makes you fat, right? That's what does it. So I came out today to check the trail cams, and if I get anything good, I will leave it. I'll tack it on to the end of this video. If you're on Patreon, I've been posting some trail cam stuff there, and I use this place now. For those of you who will remember the beginning of my journey, 8 years ago now, I started coming here. It is getting dark fast. I'm gonna get rained on. When I started coming here, when I first escaped to the woods to like practice my bushcraft skills, I think, which sounds ridiculous, but I built a shelter over that way that I called the Bothy, and that's why we call this Bothy Woods. And there's a creek that runs right there that you can't see. So it's real woods. It's real woods, and there's real wildlife here, and it's not a city park basically, and yet. And I used this as sort of a landing pad when I sort of escaped from my life as a citified journo. Anyway, these days I mostly just check the trail cams. It's only accessible during the colder months because it grows up to the point that you really can't get in and out very much during the summer. And in the summer, I'd rather be somewhere with trout. But colder months, I'm out here, and it's just kind of a refuge. So anyway, if I got anything good, I'll show you. I did discover a pile of fur. Sentences you don't often say, but I did discover a pile of fur on my way out, and there were several piles, smaller piles of fur leading to a hole in a tree, and I thought, do I really want to know what's in this tree? And I kind of like there was fur stuffed into the hole in the tree. I thought, maybe I'll poke around in there, and then I thought better of that. Mostly it's like it could be something disgusting in there, but it also could be something poked that fur in there to like use as insulation. I don't want to disturb that. But we only have a few Ask Gribbs questions this week, so I thought I would use this opportunity to address them. And of course, they're all on my phone, so I will make this up as I go along. Roberto says he thinks Biden did an excellent job at the State of the Union. I agree. He did do an excellent job in the context of the times in which we're living. And part of that context is that the man is in his 80s. And, so in the abstract, was it a... I disagree that Roberto said that he thought it was like the one of the best political speeches of all time. I disagree there, at least in the abstract. In the context, I don't know. It had. I was stirred. I got stirred. Although I'm a real sucker for. I have to be careful because I'm a real sucker for inspiring language, and that can get you in trouble listening to politicians because they all have inspired. Well, most of them have inspiring language, and so you remember the Obama years when he would come out and say a bunch of pretty words, and then people would criticize him for that, and then he would come out and say even prettier words from our founding documents and say, well, are these just words? Well, yeah, they are. They are just words, but it stirs emotion. However, it is pretty significant in our time to say we will not bow down to Vladimir Putin. And even since the State of the Union, I mean, I think that the news that we're hearing makes that even more significant. And so, yes, I prevaricated when I commented about it. My true feelings are that it was an excellent speech, and I wish that we had a better chance at realizing those words. I think that's where I hesitate to come out and like ringingly endorse that speech, because times are dark. On that note, I won't read it verbatim because I have to tab over, but on that note, Grant Reynard says, would I support, if I could wave a magic wand and change our political system, would I support appointing random citizens to office as opposed to the system we have now. Years ago, I would have said absolutely not. I think I'm more open to it now than I ever would have been before, because the quality of our leadership is awful. But think about the most average person you can imagine, and then think about the fact that half the population is stupider than that. So yeah, it would be hard to endorse the random appointment of citizens to office without some sort of test of qualifications, but then you get into even the most basic tests of qualifications have been used in the past to disenfranchise folks. So what test are we comfortable requiring of people? Land ownership, literacy, all these things have been misused in the past, and I think that a basic citizenship test would be, you could throw that out there, but there again, it does require literacy. It does require a public education system that actually educates. And then Grant follows up with, do you ever think Canada will become a real country? When your chief export is maple syrup and politeness, that's not a big economic powerhouse, Somebody else might know this. What about Canadian tobacco? Are there far-ranging tracts of land dedicated to Canadian varieties up there that us poor Yanks have just never heard about? Like, are there Saskatchewans as there are Virginias? I will say this, actually, there is a higher export of Canada, and that is Minecraft videos. Etho is an amazing Minecraft video creator. Gemini Tay is awesome. I think Vintage Beef and maybe Pause on Pause. There's a bunch of, there was Team Canada for a while on the Minecraft server, I believe. So yeah, those guys are awesome. What if we did this? Okay, how about this? Instead of choosing our citizens at random to lead our country, what if we just chose random Canadians? Like, you come in fresh, you got new ideas, you have no idea what's going on, but like, neither does anybody else here, so what's the difference? At least they're polite. John Gallieri asked if I'm excited about the coming spring. I'm pretty excited in the absolute sense about this coming storm. I need to wrap this up. John says that he likes to get the spring catalogs, Bass Pro and stuff like that. I am not a Bass Pro guy. If there were a Trout Pro, I would be that guy. Oh, here comes the rain. I am excited. Oh God, I am excited. But I get Feathercraft. That's when I know I need to start tying flies for the year. And then I go and I look at my flies and I realize that I tied so many during the COVID lockdowns that I'll probably never need to tie flies ever again. And that's kind of sad. I like tying flies. Yeah, I'm about to get really wet, y'all. I have to go home and stuff some fur in my hole to stay dry. Rafa has asked an excellent question, though, that I will get wet to answer. He says, as a non-believer, he wonders why Christian music, Christian bands, do not recognize the greatest band, which happens to be a Christian band. And I'll reveal that in a second. Backstory, as I often mention, my father was a minister, so I hung out with lots of church kids growing up, and at one point I was invited to go to this is gonna suck. Top 10 things you shouldn't do when you've been sick, right? Stay out in the rain. I was invited to go to a Billy Graham revival retreat. What do they call those things? Like arena-sized revivals where you go down to the center of the football field and proclaim your faith. Jeez, okay. That was scary. I've got a 52-inch trekking pole here. It just went halfway into the bog. Anyway, for those of you who aren't American, if you're not familiar with Billy Graham, he was a big evangelist, pastor, and Baptist. We were Presbyterian. My father was a staunch Presbyterian, and so I said, hey, these kids from the other church, they invited me to go to this Billy Graham thing, which was like 3 hours away, and my dad was like, all right. And actually, my dad had a lot of respect for Billy Graham. Yeah, we went, and before Billy Graham came on stage, there were two Christian bands, Jars of Clay, and there's some other band that they were super famous at the time. But yeah, just awful, terrible music. Anyway, Rafa asked, why do Christians never talk about U2, which is, of course, the greatest band that happens to be Christian. And my own history with U2 is pretty checkered. I feel like anything from the 80s and early 90s is pretty amazing. I kind of stopped relating to the Bono character after that. Like, long about the Hold Me, Kiss Me, Thrill Me, Kill Me Batman soundtrack thing, it was really hard to stay on board with that. I think we've got a little bit of a reprieve here, so I'll talk a little bit more. Yeah, why doesn't the Christian community ever realize what U2 is? My guess is because they're actually real Christians and sing about real Christian things. If you hang out with clergy, as I have done my entire life, you get to hear sort of the inside opinions on a lot of Christian culture, meaning American Christian culture. And one of the opinions that is pretty universal is that Christian music sucks, and that the worst part of it is the Jesus is my boyfriend trope, where people sing about Jesus in these like very simplistic, glowing terms that sound like a young pop singer singing about a romantic interest. And there's no complexity. There's no sense of nuance. It's just blatant. It's made to sell, just like any other watered down kind of music. I mean, think about, like, while we're talking about musical acts from the 80s, think about Madonna. Think about Like a Prayer. Like, that is some serious, I don't want to say theological, because I think that gives Madonna a little too much credit. But wrestling with issues of identity in a faith system, it's serious work. Do we know who actually wrote that song? Was that actually Madonna? Because I don't know that I believe that. I think Madonna is more an image than a person. Anyway, to get back to U2, yeah, I mean, The Joshua Tree is certainly in my top 5 albums of all time. And again, it's like abstract versus context. I like it is. I think it loses a little bit if you take it out of context. On the other hand, if you compare it to everything that came after it, it was so influential in establishing a style of music that had truly never been heard before. And the fact that that album in particular was a critique of American spirituality, is just unbelievable. But to continue on why they're not talked about, they're too subversive. They I mean, if you listen to the live recordings, you know, Bono is very direct in what he thinks of modern organized religion, and I think that we have a problem with words. Like, it's hard to refer to Christians in America and know exactly who you're talking about, because there are people that actually practice the faith, and then there are people that identify, to use an especially charged word, there are people that identify as Christians, who are clearly not. And they're the ones that buy that music. It keeps starting to rain, and then it stops again. So I'm like climbing the hill, and then I stop and talk, and I climb the hill. Yeah, raining now. So my wife and I saw U2 on the Elevation tour, which I guess was what, 2002, 3? It was the tour where they had the big, like, was it heart-shaped track that went out in front of the stage, and at one point Bono was like running laps on the track. You know, it really struck me as like, okay, dude, like, you've got like insurmountable energy to dump on your audience. That's great, but like, we don't need you to do that. But I will say that if you want any, if you want a very clear answer to your question, you should watch any live performance of Bullet the Blue Sky made after 2016. Very explicit. And this is, it speaks to an issue that the evangelical community cannot own up to, cannot face. And that's why they don't want to talk about U2. All right, climbing out of the woods now, and sorry, this was kind of a rambly video. I'll put any cool trail cam images on the end. Thank you for watching. Keep the ends out for the ties to bind.